Hi, welcome to the Refugee Welcome Collective Lunch and Learn series. In these sessions, we aim to bring interesting and timely information to you, supporters of refugees. Whether you are a volunteer, community sponsor, resettlement agency staff, a local advocate, or just someone who's interested in learning more, we hope that you enjoy today's session. Today's session is entitled Exploring Co-Sponsorship at the National Level. Refugee Welcome Collective collaborates with partners to provide an in-depth training programs, weekly learning sessions, resources, and on-demand technical assistance for sponsors, practitioners at resettlement agencies, refugees paired with sponsors, community and institutional partners, and others to support quality community sponsorship programs across the United States. As a reminder for everyone joining the call today, there's a control panel in your upper right-hand corner that will allow you to submit questions through the questions box. There will be ample time at the end of the webinar for question and answer. Everyone on today's webinar is automatically muted. However, if you have any technical issues, please raise your hand through the control panel or submit a question in the questions box so we can assist you. Additionally, the presentation, any resources, and a recording will be sent to everyone following today's webinar. This brings us to our presenters for today. Our presenters are Una Bilic with IRC, Emily Gilkinson with ECDC, and Chloe Shiras with HIAS. Una, take it away.
Thanks so much, Derek, and hi, everybody. Welcome, whether it's your lunch hour or maybe on the West Coast, it's your coffee hour. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Una Bilic, as Derek said, and I am the Senior Program Officer here at the International Rescue Committee for Community Sponsorship. And so you are all here probably wondering, like, how do I get involved? What is community sponsorship, and what are the avenues that are offered to me and my group to sponsor a family? Here at the International Rescue Committee, we have 25 resettlement offices. Resettlement offices meaning offices that actually accept refugees and help them restart their new lives. And you may have heard of that 90-day timeline. That's what we call the resettlement period, where a plethora of events happen to really help integrate our new refugees into their communities and help start their basic lives. And this is what we call the resettlement period. In the IRC, out of the 25 resettlement offices that we have across the United States, 13 of them are actually participating in this program called co-sponsorship. So co-sponsorship, for those of you who may not know, is when a group such as yours goes into a non-legal binding agreement with the IRC office or one of the offices of the other panelists, and you, in a sense, come up with an agreement of how many services you will be providing for the family and how many services the office will take responsibility for. And when we talk about these services, we call them core services. And these services are not created by me, Derek, or Emily. It's actually PRM who comes up with a cooperative agreement and says, hey, out of the services, there's about 18 core services. These services have to be delivered to every single refugee case, every single refugee family. And then from those 18 services, the co-sponsor group, along with the IRC office, in my context, will agree on what services are delegated and what services are kept internally. Some national requirements, and as you'll hear between me, Emily, and Chloe, there's a little bit of a difference on how everybody runs their sponsorship program. So in the IRC office, out of the 12 offices that are participating in co-sponsorship, there is a financial contribution that each office asks for, and that is about $3,000 to $5,000 per family that your group would be sponsoring. The range is $3,000 to $5,000 because within those 12 offices, there's a little bit of a difference. So it really depends on the area and the office that you would interact with, but it is a $3,000 to $5,000 financial contribution. The time commitment. We here at the IRC, we do ask our co-sponsor groups to commit a 6-month time commitment. So when you are signing the non-legal binding agreement with the local office, we are asking you for a 6-month time commitment. Majority of that time, the first 90 days, you will be so busy completing all those services, all those core services for the family, which leaves the additional 90 days to really get to know your family and help them integrate into the community. And along with that, we do ask that because co-sponsorship does have to be a group. We here at the IRC do ask for a minimum of 6 people and a maximum of 10 people. And we would love for every single group to have a team leader, point of contact, whatever, however you want to call it, but an individual that can really serve as that focal point for the group and can provide the information necessary to the IRC offices that you would join up with. Training is provided for you and your group, and it will be done so by the focal point at the IRC office. We do in real-time training. So I don't say in person because we're still, battling some COVID restrictions, but in real time, meaning we will have Zoom trainings that usually take about a total of 5 hours. No, we're not going to keep you on a Zoom call for 5 hours. That's more of a conference, right? But we will break up those training modules, and we really go over everything. So we go over what is resettlement. Then we go over what are these core services that we're asking you to help the family out with. We go over the importance of case notes and case file documentation. We also talk about some really tougher topics such as cultural orientation and culture shock and identity and some power struggles. And, we really have a really open dialogue to talk about things that you all may not think comes with helping refugees resettle, but it's something that we as practitioners deal with every single day, especially setting those boundaries and making sure that we're really assisting the family in providing them the power to make their own decisions. Of course, we're all here because we really believe in community sponsorship, and just like everything, just like every program, there's definitely things to work on, and definitely things that need to change and need to improve. The really lovely thing about community sponsorship in general is that you all or co-sponsors have the ability to provide services to clients that we as practitioners could never. And I think that's why I believe in this program so much. I opened up the Tallahassee office of the International Rescue Committee in 2015, and me and my staff worked day and night to provide just the bare minimum core services. But because we serve so many families and our capacity was always so large, we weren't able to do wonderful things like throw baby showers and take families to the parks and to the local museums and assist more with the daily interaction with the family and the school. And that's what co-sponsorship brings. So not only are you able to assist the office and the caseworkers with doing those Social Security appointments and public benefits, but you're able to bring that love and care and attention and that real hand holding integration that our refugee families need once they arrive to their final destination. So I'm a big believer of co-sponsorship, and I welcome you all to contact me if you have any other questions or you want to get involved with any of the co-sponsorship that IRC provides. I'm sure Derek will share all of our information, and please really think about it. It is the most, and I will say that my personal opinion, the most beneficial program when it comes to our refugee families with their assistance and helpful in integration. And I will pass it on back to Derek.
Thank you so much, Una. I really appreciate it. Next is Emily. Emily, just wait 1 second while I try to pull up. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, great. I can see it. Hopefully everyone else can too. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily. As Derek said, I work for ECDC. And just like Una, we have a national ECDC co-sponsorship program that we have been developing and are in the process of piloting. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about our program. And you'll see in some ways how it's similar and how it may be different also from the IRC. So I wanted to first just talk you through a little bit about the process that we've undergone to get here to where we are. So we did start, this is something that's quite new for ECDC. We did start with 2 branch offices a little more than a year ago in 2021, when we looked at our branch office in Denver and DC Metro. They were interested in starting co-sponsorship. So these offices have had different volunteer programs and different ways of using community members, but the idea of real co-sponsorship, of this deep involvement that Una described, was new. So what we worked together as the national team plus these 2 branch offices to agree on kind of what's the process that we want, what's the kind of flow of getting people into the program and active in the program, prepared for it. What are the requirements? Una talked about that, and I'll share ours. What are the standard documents that we have? So in terms of the application, in terms of the agreement that she was talking about. So we worked on that together so that we could have a harmonized approach to it. And we also, at the same time, we're setting up 2 new offices, one in Wisconsin and one in Vermont. So Wausau, Wisconsin and Brattleboro, Vermont. And we at ECDC decided that we really wanted to make these new offices that are a bit more rural and smaller communities, we wanted co-sponsorship to really be a cornerstone of their programming. So instead of kind of tacking it on later after the systems are already set up, we said, let's try to start this. So we were mobilizing community members even before we had staff, were educating them about what is co-sponsorship and how they could get involved. So that was happening also at the same time, so using the same documents, the same process. In October of last year, we also gathered 8 different offices for a wider welcome project training. So this is looking at how do we get diverse volunteers involved in refugee resettlement, and how do we craft community sponsorship programs so that it's inclusive. And then in November and December, we did 3 days of national co-sponsorship training. So the first day really started on the process, again, all of those things that we have set up in terms of the structure. And then the second 2 days really focused on the training. How are we going to train the community members? As Una talked about, there's a lot to prepare for. And so we had developed a manual, a training guide. So we prepared our staff to be able to cascade that. And then after that national training, we had our first teams being matched really in November and December. And since that time, we have been having monthly review meetings. So we have 11 offices that are piloting co-sponsorship now. And so we all come together, share experiences, and talk about what's working, what's missing. We're still creating documents, different processes to address the kind of gaps or challenges that come up along the way. So yeah, in terms of our criteria, Derek, you can go to the next slide, thanks. So somewhat is similar to the IRC, we do require 7 people, and we do require, as Una said, to have a team coordinator, so a team leader. And then we have the team to be organized into thematic committees, so focused on what we call different integration pathways. So focused on health, focused on education, focused on jobs and finance. So we have 6 different committees, and so there's a committee lead for each one of them, and then the coordinator to help coordinate the whole thing. And for cash contribution, we do require $3,000 as a minimum. And we ask that that contribution be ready at the time when you're going to be matched with the family. Household items, we do require in-kind donations up above and on top of the cash contribution, which again, we can use the cash for rental assistance, other urgent needs, but the personal and household items really help to make sure that they are set up in a nice, comfortable home and that the cash can be used for other things other than purchasing furniture. So there's a lot that can be gathered, and we're so impressed with the way our co-sponsors have really stepped up for this task. Our time commitment is longer than IRC's and some of the other agencies that we do ask for a 9-month commitment. And just so that, again, far beyond the initial 3 months of the actual resettlement program, that these families can be supported with their longer term integration and really help with that self-sufficiency and confidence to take them through the better part of their first year. We do provide the training, as I mentioned, and our training is about 6 hours. And I like the way that Una said that it is in real time. So yeah, a combination of in-person or live Zooms, again, depending on the situation and the location, but all covering about the same thing. And again, we do have that written agreement that outlines the roles and responsibilities. So as I mentioned, we have 11 offices currently that do have co-sponsorship programs. And so those locations are listed here in this chart. I mentioned that the pilot first started with DC and Denver, but as you can see that we now have a larger cohort, and some of these within ECDC's network, they are independent organizations, so they are not all branch offices. And so some of them, again, we're already planning on launching co-sponsorship themselves even before ECDC. So we've all kind of come together as like a learning cohort and a network so that we can align and share and help each other as we implement this really important and helpful program. So it's pretty amazing that in such a short time, we already have over 100 active teams. So it means that there's more than 100 families who are already being supported by a co-sponsorship team or a support team, which again means that similar structure, but they're not doing the core services. So doing more of the additional, like Una mentioned, mentorship support, but not taking up necessarily the core services. So we do have a blend of both, but we're really trying to focus on the course co-sponsorship for right now as we're launching it. Yeah, so in process again means just that we have teams that have been recruited and they're maybe in some stage of they've applied, but they're waiting to be trained, or they've done part of the training but not yet finished, or they're waiting for the match. So those ones again will be matched soon. So as I mentioned that it's a new program for us, we're scaling up pretty quickly because of the needs, the incredible needs that we have right now. And of course, anytime you do something new and with the scale of the arrivals that we've had, there are challenges. So that's why we come together and discuss them and try to figure out the best way forward. So of course, like the Afghan placement and assistance program has caused our offices to be very overwhelmed with arrivals. So that has really been difficult. We had already this plan to launch co-sponsorship, then this program came. It really overwhelmed staff, but it also brought out so much attention, so many people who were wanting to help. So in some ways it has been both a challenge, but also an opportunity to manage. And as community members, we've often found that you all are so eager to move fast and really push us to meet the needs of the clients as quickly as possible. And so sometimes we find that there's a mismatch of expectations in terms of what the pace of change and services. So those are things that we're constantly navigating and working to become more clear about. With the co-sponsorship money, that cash donation that we collect, we're still thinking about the best ways to use that money, how we can equitably make sure that certain families don't have lots of resources while others really don't have any support. So we have lots of discussions around that as well. Also the selection, as I mentioned, in our offices, we are serving lots of clients and not all of them, it's only a small number of cases that do have co-sponsorship teams. And so deciding about who to match is something that we continually talk about so that it makes sense and it's also explainable and justifiable to the clients in the community who may see these differences as well. We do have post-arrival different, changes. So we do have some cases where the family has a U.S. tie, but that wasn't documented before, and so they want to go join family elsewhere. And so those types of things, are affecting the co-sponsorship relationship as well. So that's just something that we are navigating because we do try to match them before that they arrive. And we're looking at, again, the caseload. What caseload is really manageable? As I said, we know that this program is really beneficial, as Una mentioned, for the refugee families. We believe that having this team of people who come around them is really helpful, but it's also a lot of things to manage, a lot of pieces to manage. So we want to make sure that as staff, we're giving adequate support and follow up, and that we assure the quality of the program. So figuring out how quickly we can scale up what is a good caseload. And again, trying to make sure that those lines of communication are clear so that, again, our case managers who are dealing with lots of clients don't get overwhelmed with too many questions, from co-sponsorship teams. So how do we set it up so that it's really beneficial on all sides and it's also smooth? And the last thing that we are looking at ECDC at a national level is that we are trying to have a common harmonized program and some key documents, but at the same time each location is different. And as I mentioned, a lot of our affiliates are independent organizations, so they have different ways of doing things. So we're trying to balance also that aspect of it so that we can feel comfortable that we know what we're talking about, the same thing, but everybody can also customize locally to their specific needs. So those are some of the things that we are working on, and really excited to share this with you. And my contact details are there if you're interested in learning more. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Emily. I really appreciate that. I'm going to go to Chloe here in just a second. Let me pull up yours. 1 second. Okay, is that showing up correctly? Can you see that?
Yep.
Great. Take it away, Chloe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Derek. Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Shiras. I am the program manager for initial resettlement at HIAS. So similarly to the ECDC network, HIAS's affiliate network are their own nonprofit organizations. So while we have kind of a national co-sponsorship model that we're developing, we also have sites that are operating co-sponsorship in different ways that really fit the needs of their clients and of their communities. So currently, HIAS is piloting co-sponsorship through something called the Catalyst Fund. Through this fund, we are working with 4 of our affiliate partners. Those are in Pittsburgh, Ann Arbor, San Diego, and Columbus. But within the rest of our network, we have a lot of other affiliates that have co-sponsor or support team initiatives. So it's kind of an interesting process where we are, officially piloting co-sponsorship with these 4 sites, but also working really closely with our other affiliate partners that are also doing similar co-sponsorship initiatives or support team initiatives. So during this pilot stage, some of the things that we're working on is creating a co-sponsorship case management suite. So like Una and Emily mentioned, creating lots of different documents and resource libraries. These forms are geared mainly towards co-sponsors, but also resources for affiliates to work with co-sponsors effectively, and even some documents specifically for clients who are going to be co-sponsored. Most clients will arrive and not know that they might be assigned a co-sponsor, so making sure to have a really intentional conversation with clients when they arrive at the intake interview to make sure that they're really clear on everybody's roles, the agency, the volunteers, and maybe a US tie as well. Another really important part of this pilot stage is collecting best practices and resource sharing. So because we have a diversity of different kinds of community sponsorship initiatives going on within our network, one of the most valuable things has just been learning from one another about the different ways that they are implementing co-sponsorship. So again, while we have some of these formalized documents from HIAS, we're really learning from our affiliates as they implement co-sponsorship to figure out in this pilot stage, how do we want to move forward for the official launch of a HIAS co-sponsorship project? What can we learn from the process of these initial co-sponsorship families to make the program as best as it can be. Another part of this is sharing out the benefits of co-sponsorship with the sites that are not part of the Catalyst grants or doing co-sponsorship generally. So this is a brand new thing for some people or for some affiliates, and being able to really explain the benefits of co-sponsorship, how it can work in their communities, has been something that's really valuable as part of our pilot program. So just a little bit on the structure. HIAS has monthly community sponsorship calls with our whole network. This was something that was actually requested by our network because people are getting really excited about co-sponsorship, and it's really starting to take off. On these calls, we'll have everyone from volunteer coordinators to resettlement directors to case managers. And then for Catalyst, we'll have a weekly check-in. And this is a really great time to, go from really granular things of a certain case and how it's going to more broader kind of conversations about co-sponsorship more generally. Go to the next slide, Derek. Thank you. All right, so a little bit about what we've learned so far. So I'm going to start with outreach. Our site in Pittsburgh developed a really creative approach, which was during the outreach period, they've decided to develop kind of 2 tracks for interested co-sponsors. They learned that some co-sponsor groups want all of the details up front. So this is kind of our detail forward approach. Other co-sponsors, that was really overwhelming, and it was better to kind of have the details later approach where, let me know what I need to know right now, give me a broad overview, but don't overwhelm me with all the details. So just kind of that simple, different 2 tracks of outreach has been something that's really valuable for our network to know that, if you just overwhelm with details in the beginning, it can be a little off-putting and a little overwhelming. So just kind of thinking through the way to pitch this program to potential interested groups. We've also found that co-sponsors helping other co-sponsors has been really effective. So once sites have that first co-sponsor matched with a family, they'll have that group speak to another interested co-sponsor group to hear a little bit about their experiences. This has been, really, really valuable method for our outreach. Another thing we've learned is that the length of time a group takes to get ready can really vary pretty greatly. Our first groups that got matched, obviously they got matched first, so they were moving really quickly. But after that, we've seen that it sometimes takes groups a couple of months to really prepare. So, enough fundraising, really getting comfortable with the idea, explaining it to their congregation or to their group. So some of these groups we work with for months before even kind of signing that commitment form. Some other best practices. So all of our affiliates in the Catalyst grant that we're piloting co-sponsorship with have decided to keep some particular core services within the agency, not really offering them up as an option for the co-sponsor. The most common of those is the benefits applications for clients. So applying for Medicaid and food stamps, the agencies really have decided to keep that in-house because it's a pretty complicated process generally and specifically for refugee populations. So making sure that we can come up with some of those kind of policies to make the co-sponsorship relationship happen as seamlessly as possible, right? So really thinking about what are the strengths of the co-sponsor, what are the strengths of the agency, and making sure to split up the core services as they relate to those strengths. Another thing is that it is important to know that, while of course we have a lot of training for co-sponsors, case managers themselves also need training on how to work with co-sponsors. This is a different, approach to resettlement. And something that's really been valuable with the Catalyst grant is that we can have a dedicated case manager that's specifically just working with the co-sponsored families. This isn't going to be realistic for all of resettlement probably, but thinking through trainings that HIAS can provide for case managers on working with co-sponsors is something that will be very important moving forward. All of us at the national level have talked a lot about training of co-sponsors before they're matched with a family. But another thing we found is that ongoing training for co-sponsors throughout the 90-day period is really important. So kind of on-the-job training for co-sponsors. Once you have real life scenarios, real life situations that come up with the co-sponsored family, it can be important to touch back to some of those topics that were really important. So such as boundary setting, how to handle different scenarios that come up. So we're thinking through how we can kind of formalize ongoing training. So maybe at the 30-day mark, you do a training again with the co-sponsors on a particular topic. Next slide, please. All right, so some of the challenges that Emily mentioned, we are definitely seeing as well, within our network. Communication, of course, can be one of the biggest challenges. Some of the other things we've seen is in-person interpretation has been a bit challenging for co-sponsor groups. So ideally, the co-sponsor groups are able to secure an in-person interpreter that they're able to call on when they need, so that they're not utilizing interpreters from the agency, but actually have someone that either they're contracting with separately or is just a volunteer with them. Driving clients, not all of our affiliates have systems set up where volunteers can drive clients, and this is definitely an important part of co-sponsorship. So we've been, working together to brainstorm of how we can make sure that it's possible for volunteers to drive clients and it still fits in the affiliate's policies. Another thing, is definitely financial boundaries. So for our co-sponsorship program, most of the time the co-sponsors will donate funds to their, so if it's a synagogue, for example, they'll donate it to their synagogue and administer the funds. The funds most likely will not be donated directly to the affiliate. It'll really be the co-sponsor group who's administering the funds for the clients. So the funds that the co-sponsor raised really will be just kind of earmarked for the family that they're matched with. This has absolutely brought up equity issues amongst clients that we've been working, talking through with our affiliates. The clients that will get co-sponsored will, inevitably be getting more resources than some of the other families. So thinking through how to discuss this with other clients, how to discuss this as an agency, and hopefully the goal is that in the future, every family can have some sort of co-sponsor. But as we kind of just gear up in this pilot stage, thinking through, how to manage that dynamic. And of course, for this pilot program, we were thinking a lot about how we can measure our impact. So we've developed I think it's actually 28 question pre and post assessment that's based on the 10 domains from the Refugee Integration Survey and Evaluation Tool. That's a pre-developed tool. And this is really to measure the integration of the clients that are matched with co-sponsors. So case managers will administer this survey with co-sponsored families, all of the adults in the case, in the first week of arrival, and then after the time period that they work with the co-sponsors. In addition, we're also measuring the experiences and impact of the co-sponsor group themselves. So at the end of the co-sponsor experience, there will be a survey that co-sponsor groups fill out as well. Next slide. So that's it. If you have any questions, my email is there. Please feel free to reach out. Really happy to talk to you about interest in co-sponsoring with one of our affiliates or just kind of our model generally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chloe. And so I just wanted to say thank you to all of our presenters today. We're now kind of in the question and answering phase for everyone, and there is still time. Just want to remind everyone to add your questions to the questions tab. It looks like we do have a few. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up. The first one was just asking what ECDC stands for. Do you all maybe I'll just throw it out to all three of you to just, I know in refugee resettlement, we tend to use these acronyms a lot. So please just clarify for everyone, what those letters all stand for each of your organizations, please.
Yeah, sure. So ECDC stands for the Ethiopian Community Development Council. But we like to go by ECDC because when people hear our full name, sometimes they think that we only resettle Ethiopians, which is not true because we do serve refugees from around the world. But that is what the letters stand for.
And the IRC stands for the International Rescue Committee.
And HIAS historically went by the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Now, like ECDC, we just go by HIAS. We are a Jewish organization, but we settle refugees from all faith backgrounds.
Thank you. Do groups need to do training? Sorry, I'm just making sure. Again, if they want like a second match. So if a group has been trained and they've worked with a client and now they're ready to welcome another family, do they go through the training again, or how long do you all consider that they're trained and ready to go?
I can start first. So, speaking from IRC, and you'll see like there were so many similarities between the three of us, right? But it was also some differences. Just how every organization runs their policies and procedures a little bit differently. If you were, so let's say a group was with HIAS and they co-sponsored a family with HIAS, and now you would like to co-sponsor a family with the IRC, we would want to do the training again, just because we don't know what, just to cover all the differences, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. But if you were co-sponsoring a second family within the IRC network with the local IRC office, then a second training would not be needed. If there was any changes, the point of contact for sponsorship would definitely meet with you and provide you with some of the changes, but it wouldn't be a full training. And I'll pass it on to Emily.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned that we are just starting, so we haven't gotten to that stage yet. We certainly hope that we will get there, and that after, again, the 9 months for those who started would be interested in taking on another family. Again, maybe not immediately, but maybe after a few months break or something. So I think, I would echo Una's comments that as long as it was with the same agency, and that the team remains mostly the same, because you may also find that you have some team members who have changed. Like you may have a group of 4 who want to continue, and then other 5 who said no, we need to move on to other things. So I think that would be slightly different, and we might have a modified training for some new members of the core team. Obviously, if we have a strong team leader who is continuing, that would be great. But we do in our training try to get everybody, all individuals who are part of what we call the core team, which means that they'll be interacting directly with the family, to participate in the training. So that's the only thing that I was thinking about, is just I might expect some change of team members. So that would need kind of an individualized approach.
Yes, I would agree. Definitely wouldn't need to redo trainings, anything like that. But if there's new members, we would have them participate in trainings, and it might differ a little bit based on the affiliate that you're working with.
Yeah, one of the other questions is what kinds of considerations do you make when trying to look for an appropriate match for a family? What makes a good match? How do you determine that?
Yeah, so I'm just going first just to keep the order, just so you know, not trying to jump in, and then I'll pass it on to Emily. That's a great question, and I think when we think of matches, I think we got to think from both of the co-sponsor side, and then we got to think from the organizational side. So, and I didn't cover this, so I really appreciate you asking that question. At the IRC, we already established which cases we would like to see match with the co-sponsor, such as you all. So we've said that there's 3 types of cases that we would like to have co-sponsors. Those are single parent cases. Single parent cases always require a lot of extra attention. And if you remember what I said at the beginning, we really, even though like our hearts are there and we want to do it, it's just not enough time for our caseworkers to devote the need that there is with single parent cases. So we like to match our co-sponsors with single parent cases. We like to match our co-sponsors with expectant mother cases. I don't know how many moms are on this call. I recently had a kiddo, and oh my God, the appointments are insane. And then the post-birth, you know, the paperwork, the Social Security, the public benefits, it's like restarting the process. So that also takes up a lot of time, and there's a lot of TLC that's needed for that, you know, mom. So we love to match our co-sponsors with expectant mother cases as well. So that's more from the organizational standpoint. But for you all, you know, we will present those cases to you, such as the single mother cases, single parent cases, and the expectant mother cases. But we also like to look at language ability. So maybe somebody in your group speaks Arabic, so you maybe match with a Syrian case. Maybe somebody speaks Pashto and Dari, so matching you with a Afghan case. Or hey, maybe you're a group of Swahili speakers and you can take on a Congolese case. We definitely look for things like that, some benefits that your group can also bring to the family. And I'll pass it on to Emily.
Yeah, thanks. It is a great question. As I mentioned, this is one of the topics that we continually talk about, because it's hard to have like a hard and fast rule about it, because especially given that the case size, the case load at different offices and how many co-sponsors they have, you know, it varies. So, but like Una said, that we do try to think about those cases that have higher needs, so that they will need some additional care. So, as you know, the examples that she mentioned are great ones. Other examples could be, you know, particular medical issues that are known. If there's a family that has, you know, a large family with a number of children, that brings other challenges as well. So those are some of the few things that we consider as well. But the idea is that maybe not like the most complicated cases, because we also don't want to really overwhelm our volunteers, but those cases that are going to need a little bit extra TLC. So that's what we do consider, the teams consider when looking to see who would be good to place with a co-sponsor, and also again those who don't have a US tie, so it tends to be a priority as well. It doesn't mean that somebody with a US tie can't have a co-sponsor, but again, those are a priority, would be those who don't already have that kind of connection. And as she mentioned as well, we also look for any particular strengths of the group. So for example, if you have a family that has a child with a hearing impairment or total hearing loss, and you've got somebody in the group who just happens to also know sign language or things like that, and you say, oh wow, that's a great match. Or a medical case, and you've got some, you know, strong medical people on the team. So those things just kind of happen, you know, serendipitously, but if they do, then of course that seems like a great opportunity. But a lot of times too, we anticipate going forward that the timing will also won't always have like such a large pool to choose from and then have lots of groups ready at the same time. So it'll also just depend on a group who's ready, and with teams who are ready with arrivals that are coming. So hope that helps.
Yeah, and at HIAS, very similar processes. I'll just expand a little bit on the US tie component. So we also do not, we try not to match families that have a US tie with a co-sponsor. Just for anyone who doesn't know out there, US tie is a family or friend that the refugee family has here in the United States. Many times if they have a US tie, they already have kind of an extra support system and wouldn't be in as much need for a co-sponsor as some other families. Some other things that we take into consideration when matching, we know that the housing market is just so difficult right now. Sometimes a co-sponsor is able to secure, say, a 2-bedroom apartment. So then we think about the case size of the family, you know, matching them with somebody that would fit into a 2-bedroom apartment. So if you're able to kind of get some of those housing needs up front, we can try to be flexible to make sure that that works, because housing is so difficult to get right now.
Yeah, thank you all so much, and great points all around. We just that we've kind of come to the end today. There are a couple more questions, but I did want someone was asking, Chloe, you had mentioned a pre and post survey that you used. Would you mind sharing that with people or give people information about that?
Yeah, so the HIAS survey that we've developed is still kind of in the pilot stage, but all of the questions were based on the refugee integration survey and evaluation tool, which is a well-known tool to measure integration efforts of refugee clients. So you can Google that. I don't have the link up with me right now, but happy to share with Derek to share out to the group later on. And happy to share HIAS's in the future once it's been finalized out of the pilot stage.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll get that link, or we'll find the sort of original big one, and send that to everyone who registered for this webinar, and then if HIAS has theirs completed and ready to share, we can do that later. Yeah, I just wanted to conclude by thanking everyone, thanking Una, Emily, and Chloe so much for your time and expertise here with us. Thank you to everyone for attending today's, I'm going to call it the RWC Lunch and Learn, the Refugee Welcome Collective Lunch and Learn. If you have any questions, you can contact myself right now. We're still kind of the Refugee Welcome Collective getting emails and stuff, but for right now you can contact me. My email is dfeldman@cwsglobal.org. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to view a recording of today's webinar, as well as descriptions of more upcoming RWC Lunch and Learns. On behalf of Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.